In this presentation, David Oswald is going to talk about storytelling and why it's very important. He's a real estate investor, and he utilizes presentations, to grow his business, get more deals, get more partners, and having a great storytelling ability is what makes that human connection. And pay attention. I think this is going to be very helpful to you. Share any insights and ideas with us on the mastermind group. You should be a member. If not, email support@hypefree.com. And also, for some reason, the intro and I think like the first few seconds is gone, but 99.9% of the main information is here. So it's going to go straight into the presentation, so just want to warn you. You didn't lose much. I think the cameraman must have been in the hallway when we started. But don't worry, you haven't missed anything. All the good stuff is there. And enjoy the presentation. I look forward to your feedback and ideas in the mastermind group.
The achievement of your dreams, as you just said. Secondary topic that I speak on throughout the country is short sales. And one of the stories I'm going to tell you is how I did my first deal in short sales and some of the first speaking opportunities I had because of when I first got involved in short sales, which was actually the end of 2006. So I relate my stories about some of the reality, some of the things that I've done. Couple questions, and first I'll ask you guys, how many of you are right now, you're speaking already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so a good percentage of the room. Those of you who are speaking already, are you selling something, selling a product? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. I want to tell a quick story how I first met Dan. And it was kind of funny. It was about 6 or 7 months ago. Dan was speaking at an event for a promoter named Chris Kremitzos. And it was right here in Tampa, not at this hotel, but it was right here in Tampa. And Dan got up there. He did a great job. The room was about 50 people. He sold about 13 units that day. And afterwards, he comes out huffing and puffing and, doing a great job. And he sits down on the couch next to me. And we start to chat a little bit. He introduces himself. I do the same. And we talk about, what we've been through in the business. And one of the things that stood out in his mind about me was that I said, Dan, I've seen your name on websites. I've seen you all over the place, but I've also heard your last name pronounced about 12 different ways by about 12 different people. Let me ask you, how the heck do you pronounce your last name? So he broke it down phonetically, broke it down for me, and I said it right the first time, and he was like, I like that guy. That guy stands out. He made an impact on me. Is there a lot of speakers in this business? True, right? So what do you have to do? Maybe separate yourself a little bit from some of the other speakers by doing certain things that are going to have an impact. Since that time, Dan and I have had an opportunity to speak on 2 stages together. He came out to one of my events in December, and it was a short sale related event. He came out and spoke at that one, and now I'm here. So in the span of 6 months, went from not knowing him to speaking together, making money together, and that's how this business happens. Who wants to hear the story of how I first got my first speaking business opportunity? My first opportunity in speaking. Here it goes. I actually started out, my first time ever speaking, I'm originally from New Jersey, so I'm not from Tampa. I'm not in an area where there's a lot of national speakers. I'm not from an area where really there's too many speakers at all. So I started out thinking to myself, how would I put on a presentation? How would I put on an event? What would be the logical steps? I had never attended a boot camp like this, but I said, I've been to about 20 other boot camps by all these other individuals. What would make sense? How would I get started? So I promoted my first event myself. What did I do? I placed a radio ad. Not too expensive. I placed an ad in the newspaper. Instead of going with like a national paper, I actually picked a local little paper that I knew would pertain to this area of town that I was in. I was in northern New Jersey, and I placed an ad in the paper. I had a little list, maybe 200 or 300 people at that time. Everybody relate to that? You only have a small list right now of 200 or 300 names. And I said, I'm going to get the word out. So I started to do these things, and I put a date on the event, and I did it not even at a hotel. I just booked it at a library. So my first event was at a library. Now, what I didn't realize is that at a library, you're not even allowed to sell anything, at least not at this one. It was a non-for-profit event, so I wasn't even allowed to sell anything. I didn't find that out until too late. But guess what happened at that first event? I had 50 people show up. I had a room full of 50 people. And I was speaking on a hot topic at the time, short sales. So when I would walk into a room in late 2006, I would ask who knew what a short sale was. Only about 10% of the room knew. Now it's changed. Everybody knows what the heck a short sale is, right? But it had changed for me at that time. So that was my first impetus into the business. And I wanted to point that out for you guys because I want you to understand some of you are going to go back to your hometown, your state, wherever you're from, and you're not going to have the ability to call on Dan or a national speaker or some of the other guys that are in this room right now and say, hey, can I get on your stage, right? You're going to have to go back and start basically from scratch. Is that true? So how do you do that? And that's why I wanted to relate that story to you right there on how I got started, how I made my first foray into the business. Now you guys are looking at me and you're saying, well, you drove here quite a ways. I drove here from Orlando and you're wearing a suit. So does that mean you're going to try to sell me something? No, in the true tradition of Hype Free, you're not going to be sold on anything today. I do want to sell you on myself, though, because I know that there are some future speakers in this room, people that are going to be the hot speakers in 2 or 3 years from now, or maybe sooner, and you and I might end up on a stage together. So I want to sell you on what I do and find us working together at some point. Does that sound pretty good? Great. Okay. And the last thing I want to say is, as I was driving over here, I was thinking about some of the things that have changed for me in my life over this past 3 years. And I wanted to encourage you to continue to go out there and pursue this dream of speaking because, without a doubt, it's the most fun part of everything that I do. I do real estate, I do outsourcing, and I do all these things, but I like to really pursue my passions. And speaking is one of those things where when you're up here and you've had a little practice and you've gotten over the little bit of fear that you might have before you actually start speaking, it's really one of the most fun things that you can do. So congratulations on taking action and getting out here today. Let's talk a little bit about why it's important. Why do you guys think that speaking, telling stories in your speaking is important? What does that help to do? Humanize you? That's a great answer, Jan. Yeah.
Helps you relate to the audience better.
Okay, helps you to relate. In what way?
I think it helps the audience to relate to you if they can connect with you. That's what you ultimately want them to connect with you.
Right. That's a great point because let's be honest. Not everybody in the room is going to buy your product no matter how great it is. 15 or 20% of the room means that you're batting pretty good. If you're doing 30% of the room, that means you're doing tremendous. So that means if you can hit somebody with different stories, different information at different points, you're going to trigger something in them emotionally, and they're going to say, that person's like me, or I want to do business like that person, or maybe he or she is not like me, but I want to be like that person, right? Is that what some of you think when you watch a great speaker? You say to yourself, I want to be like that person, so I want to do business with that person? These are how some of your stories can help to relate to that. Any other thing? Why it's important? Why is it important to tell stories in your presentation? We had 2 great answers so far. Great answer. Yeah.
It keeps people interested and from getting bored.
Right.
Too much information.
Like Dan said, he was Mr. Factual guy. He was education, facts. He didn't have any stories, and maybe people, they liked it, they got good stuff, but they just couldn't quite relate because there were no stories. All right, so great answers. People understand stories, right? A picture says 1,000 words. What if you can paint a picture through the words that you say? People can relate to stories. Could anybody relate to the story I told about my first time doing a presentation? How it was no connections, my inability to actually know exactly what to do, but I just stepped out there and did it. That'll be the reality for many of you in the room. It makes sense on how you got where you are now, right? Wouldn't really make sense if I didn't give you a little bit of background on myself on the introduction. If all of a sudden I just popped up here, you knew nothing about me, and I'm just standing in front of you doing a presentation, right? It kind of has to make sense how you got where you were. People can relate to that part of it. What else? It tells you your background a little bit. What do you know about me at this point? You know that I'm originally from New Jersey. I'm living right here in Orlando right now. It tells you how I first got started in the business, how I didn't have any real connections in the speaking business, but now I'm at a point where I'm able to network in. Because what happens with this speaking business? Somebody sees you. Dan got an opportunity to see me speak, and he said, I want that guy on my stage. Or Dustin got a chance to see me come out to an event, and we got a chance to meet, and next thing you know, we're doing business together. So this is how this works.